Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show. By the way, I know I'll forget, so I want to remember it. No, I want to say it while I remember it. I will be giving a major talk this coming Wednesday night at Redondo Beach, California. So if you are anywhere in North America, you have sufficient time to get to the speech. Those of you listening in New York, I just want you to know the weather here is gorgeous. So you might want to consider it. If you can get on a flight, it's another dilemma. Welcome to the show, my friends. I don't often devote 3 hours to politics, and I do have other things to talk about, but it is so huge what is going on in the United States now. The future of America will be shaped inordinately by this next election. So it's inevitable that it will have a disproportionate amount of attention. There is a civil war now, 2 civil wars in the United States, mentioned in hour number 1, the left-right and within the right. If the polls are accurate, and I have no idea if the polls are accurate, that will be one of the interesting elements in the Iowa and New Hampshire primaries. Actually, I know it's caucuses, but we call them primaries for short here. That will be one of the items to watch, how accurate the polls were, because so many people I know never respond to pollsters. So who knows? I know I did one informal poll on the show. Some of you may recall. I simply had you call up and tell me who you would support and who you wouldn't support, or who you would least likely to support. And Donald Trump was the one voted least likely to support. And I have a lot of... Obviously, I know for a fact, I know from my email, I have a lot of Trump supporters who listen. But I think that there are more non-Trump supporters. So obviously there are, because even if he has 39% of the vote, it means 6 out of 10 are not supporters. But I don't know if the polls are accurate. In any event, if they are, there is indeed a civil war in the Republican Party. Maybe it needs one. Except that Donald Trump shouldn't be the standard bearer. That's the point that I would make. If you didn't hear, and I don't often say this, but if you didn't hear the call from Oregon last hour, you should. It was a man who, I said I would comment on his call. I think it was Mark in Oregon. If you didn't hear his call... I will just say this. He is a man who until very recently supported Donald Trump and now does not support Trump, supports Cruz. His articulation of what appealed to him about Donald Trump should put to rest all of those who regard Trump supporters as crazies, as John McCain said, or as crackpots or nuts or whatever else negative item. I am as negative on Donald Trump as anyone, but I am not negative on the supporters. And if you heard this man, his intelligence, his articulateness on behalf of why he did support Trump, it would dispel the wishful thinking of the anti-Trump forces, and I am in the anti-Trump forces, but the wishful thinking that his supporters are just dummies. They're not. They're not. What I ask people to do is simply ask, does he really embrace your values? He doesn't. That's it's so obvious. That's the whole point. Somebody called and I didn't get to take the call, but said, have I looked at his website? You can read his website in 10 minutes. It's so largely vapid. And somebody called and said, well, Dennis asks, why doesn't he have any advisors? And it's a tactical reason. There's not... Winning an election is not more important than having good people in your world. I want to know who gives him advice. If a candidate took James Baker for foreign affairs, I would probably say that's not my candidate. That's how I know. If you think President Donald Trump would nominate for the Supreme Court anybody like Scalia or Thomas, you are living in fantasy land. He wants his sister to be appointed to the Supreme Court. She's a judge, and she's quite on the left. This man doesn't have an ideological bone in his body, which will appeal to some people, but it shouldn't appeal to people who do have. I have an ideological bone in my body. My ideology is the American Trinity, which is now known as conservatism. That's the state that we are in. There is this civil war in the party. Now, I have been reading to you, and it's very important that I continue. National Review had an issue come out last week, and to its credit, because it's clearly it's going to tick off some people, and they'll lose readers. By the way, you know what? I got to raise this point. I wish I had the text in front of me. I don't. A tweet went out from someone who said as follows. I have a longtime listener and admirer of Dennis Prager can no longer listen, or something to that effect. He's because of his position on Trump. I have raised this issue, interestingly. I have raised this issue over the course of my entire broadcast career. It transcends me. It transcends talk radio. It goes to a very fundamental issue of life, and that is back to my moral bank account. Let's say you respect me, and I have earned your respect as a decent person, as a person of insight, whatever you wish to say, over the course of, let's say, 10 years. Not even 30, so I've been broadcasting. Let's say 10 years. I then take a position that you don't agree with. Why have I lost my entire moral bank account? Why is it a withdrawal of 10 years of deposits? It's almost the opposite of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has made not one deposit into a conservative bank account, and then gets conservatives overnight because of X, Y, or Z issue or way of speaking. And others of us who have earned your respect for 10 years lose it overnight because of Donald Trump. See, it's an inversion. It's fascinating. He has earned nothing in terms of your respect or your agreement for or his whole life. But all of a sudden, he's your hero. And then people who were your quote-unquote heroes, intellectual, moral, whatever, lose it overnight because of Trump. It gives you an idea of how it is passion, not reason, that underlies the support for Donald Trump. But it is a very important thing, because I said it transcends Prager, it transcends Trump, it transcends radio, it transcends politics. If you have a close friend who has been good to you, been loyal to you, and then does something to hurt you, and you decide, I can no longer be this person's friend, you will be friendless. Everyone will hurt you in the course of a lifetime. That is the nature of human relations. But if they have built up, again, the moral bank account that I speak of, that should buffer that hurt. This is a great educational moment, because I have gotten mail like that all of my lifetime. Gee, I really respected you. I really liked you. And then you said X, you're out of my life. So who's going to remain in your life? The answer is nobody. I always use the George Will example. I respect him tremendously, and he came out against capital punishment. I am passionately for capital punishment. So all I did was I said, okay. So on that issue, George Will and I differ, and he still has my respect, tremendous respect. It's a very important little moment here. So if National Review just earned people's respect for all these years, loses people because of this, it's a sad moment. Back in a moment, you are listening to the Dennis Prager Show. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. And I am discussing the National Review issue against Trump. That's the title, with 22 prominent conservatives writing in there why they're against Donald Trump. I am against Donald Trump. And I have dealt, this last segment, I dealt with a very, very big issue that everybody has to deal with in life. When people you admire disappoint you. There are people I am disappointing when I say this. I know from emails, from tweets. So you have to decide, does that invalidate me? Doesn't invalidate you to me that you support Trump. Isn't that interesting? I'm defending you. But you're wrong. And you think I'm wrong. That's fine. But it doesn't invalidate a lifetime of my work any more than Trump's lifetime of nothing for conservative principles. Nothing. A lifetime of preoccupation with Donald Trump all of a sudden qualifies him to save America. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Past matters. So I'm reading to you some of the statements, just a few excerpts from the people who have written in this National Review. I've been doing it in alphabetical order. Mark Helprin is another one. He writes for the Wall Street Journal periodically. He's considered by my producer the greatest living American novelist, or at least one writing many novels now. Governing a great nation in parlous times is far more than making deals. Compared with the weight of the office he seeks, his deals are microscopic in scale because it's addressing the notion of he knows how to make deals. Next one that I have here is Yuval Levin. And I'm trying to look up the... I know I read his stuff all the time. He's a contributing editor of National Review. An editor of National Affairs, a very good thinker. Donald Trump is no conservative. That's not a crime. It's just a reason to vote against him. Many fine people are not conservatives. But the reason Trump's candidacy should worry the right runs much deeper than that. He poses a direct challenge to conservatism because he embodies the empty promise of managerial leadership outside of politics. And that is with regard to his belief. I will do this. I will do this. I will do this. And he like Barack. He's really a mirror image of Barack Obama. Of I don't need a Congress. I don't need any. I know what I want and I will push it through. But there's not much that we know about other than the immigration issue and the Islamic issue. And another writer, I don't how is her name pronounced? Dana Loesch or Loesch? Do you know? Yeah, okay, I think it's Loesch too. Host of the nationally syndicated radio program and of Dana on The Blaze, and appears regularly on Fox News. Why is it unconscionable for Ted Cruz to take and repay a loan from Goldman Sachs to help win a tough Senate race, but acceptable for Donald Trump to take money from George Soros? I didn't even know that until I read this. That he's does a lot of bad, George Soros. Why is vetting Trump as we do any other candidate considered bashing? Aren't these fair questions? I never liked that about Donald Trump. Remember when he was asked, would you support the Republican candidate? Well, if they treat me fairly. The pomposity and lack of idealism in that response just made me sick. If they treat me fairly? It's lash? Well, we were both wrong. Okie doke. Popularity over principle. Is this the new right? That's the question that is posed there. Let me go to some others on the list here. David McIntosh is the president of the Club for Growth, another major conservative organization. Trump beguiles us, defies the politically correct media, and bullies anyone who points out that the emperor has no clothes. None of that makes him a conservative who cherishes liberty. For decades, Trump has argued for big government. About health care, he has said everybody's got to be covered and the government's going to pay for it. He has called for boycotts of American companies he doesn't like, told bureaucrats to use eminent domain to get him better deals on property he wanted to develop, and proudly proposed the largest tax increase in American history. Trump has also promised to use tariffs to punish companies that incur his disfavor. He offers grand plans for massive new spending, but no serious proposals for spending cuts or entitlement reforms. Let's see. Michael Medved, my colleague on talk radio. Even if Trump won a crushing majority of self-described white voters, he could hardly improve on Romney's landslide victory, 59 to 39%, in that demographic group. Edwin Meese, who was Ronald Reagan's gubernatorial and presidential, who served in Ronald Reagan's gubernatorial and presidential administrations. When Reagan first ran for governor of California in 1966, his party was deeply divided by past electoral conflicts. To restore unity, he adopted a new rule, which had been proposed by the party chairman, the 11th commandment, thou shalt not speak ill of any fellow Republican. At the beginning of the current campaign for the Republican presidential nomination, it appeared that the party had one of the strongest arrays of candidates in many years. This is a very important point. Successful governors, senators, business and professional leaders. Today, however, the political atmosphere is polluted by the vicious personal attacks that the Republican contenders have unleashed against one another. Heading the attackers in both vigor and vitriol has been Donald Trump. That's exactly right. The belittling insults that he throws, I don't know why that appeals to me. That's not being politically incorrect. That's nothing to do with political incorrectness. It means you're a lowlife. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you're politically incorrect. To belittle John McCain's service as a loser for being taken prisoners, and veterans still support Donald Trump? Why wasn't that an automatic turnoff to every single veteran in this country, especially those who fought in war? It shows you what people are doing are placing their hopes and their angers and their frustrations onto a man who just doesn't deserve your support. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. Hello, my friends. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. I am reviewing what National Review has published in its Against Trump edition. And these are people who've devoted their lives, often at a great price, like Tom Sowell. Tom Sowell has been hated by the black establishment because he is one of the most intelligent people in America and happens to be black and happens to be conservative. So before you dismiss all of us who are so opposed to Donald Trump, I think at least I think people like Tom Sowell have earned your respect. Michael Mukasey, I'm going in alphabetical order. He was the U.S. Attorney General in some of the Bush years and a U.S. District Judge before that. Trump says he would order the military to kill the families of terrorists. He just gives another example of a crazy Trump idea. And that's a crazy idea, by the way. We didn't do that with Nazis. We didn't do that with the Japanese fascists. I mean, think about that. That would be a direct violation of the most basic laws of armed conflict, which require that deadly force be used only when required by military necessity and under circumstances that allow distinction between military and civilian targets. A military that adhered to the laws of armed conflict would necessarily disobey such an order. If it followed the order, both the person who gave it and those who followed it would be subject to prosecution for war crimes. Katie Pavlich, I assume most of you know Katie, young conservative, editor of Town Hall. Conservatives have a serious decision. Do we truly believe in our long-held principles and insist that politicians have records demonstrating fealty to them? Or are we willing to throw these principles away because an entertainer who has been a liberal Democrat for decades simply says some of the right things? Yes, I guess so. Then John Podhoretz, editor of Commentary Magazine, lifelong opponent of the left in America, he and the magazine. Then the editor of First Things. First Things is a great journal. Father Newhouse started it, Richard Newhouse. He's one of the great Americans of this past generation. He was on my show many times. He was one of the great religious thinkers. He wrote The Naked Public Square. I loved that man. He was very special. And I often got published in First Things, which is a wonderful magazine. So from a religious conservative standpoint, he writes, talking about the supporters. He said, they suspect rightly that the Chamber of Commerce will sell them down the river if it adds to the bottom line. That is correct. I unfortunately, I'm sorry to say. Big business in particular has never been a friend of conservatives, as I've said to you for all of my broadcast life. All true, but it's sad that this frustrated cohort now fixes on Trump as its savior. He presents himself as a strong man who promises to knock heads and make things right again. In this, he has a lot more in common with South American populist demagogues than with our tradition of political leaders. And now Tom Sowell. What is even more remarkable is that after 7 years of repeated disasters, both domestically and internationally, under a glib egomaniac in the White House, so many potential voters are turning to another glib egomaniac to be his successor. No doubt much of the stampede of Republican voters toward Mr. Trump is based on their disgust with the Republican establishment. It is easy to understand why there would be pent-up resentments among Republican voters. But are elections held for the purpose of venting emotions? That's right on. Elections have far more lasting and far more serious or even grim consequences than emotional venting. The actual track record of crowd pleasers, whether Juan Perón in Argentina, Obama in America, or Hitler in Germany, is very sobering, if not painfully depressing. That's Tom Sowell. All right, back in a moment. Hello, my friends. I'm Dennis Prager. Time to take your calls now. Sarasota, Florida, Ken. Hello, Ken. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Dennis.
Hi.
Yeah, I just disagree with the National Review and their opinions, and I'm really sad that you're coming on and supporting them in this because, say, for instance, all the things you could be talking about, such as Hillary's emails and things that are wrong with this country. We have a debt of $21 trillion.
Can I talk about those things? I talk about what's wrong with this country 98% of the time.
It seems like all the talk has not gotten us anywhere with these political operatives we have in Washington. They just keep doing the same thing. Now we got a candidate that wants to change things, and you're trying to bring him down.
You don't think Ted Cruz, for example, wants to change things?
Well, he was born in Canada, for one thing.
Okay, if he were born in New Mexico or Minnesota, would you support him?
Well, would you support a Pakistani that was born in Pakistan?
Well, the issue is if he was born to an American parent in Pakistan, the only question is whether or not the Constitution regards that person as American and qualified.
Well, the problem is he can't prove that he is a natural-born citizen, or he can't disapprove it. So he shouldn't be running. And I'm not voting for somebody that's going to take constitutional law.
Right, but this was not raised. This was not raised until a few weeks ago. Prior to that, were you supporting him?
He was low in the polls. It didn't matter at that point if he's going to win anyway. What does it matter?
Okay, so all right, so but you didn't answer my question because you immediately went to the Canadian birth. If that were resolved, would Ted Cruz shake things up?
No, because he hasn't done a darn thing since he was in the Senate.
And what exactly has Donald Trump done in his 69 years that tells you that he would shake things up in the way you want?
Well, he knows how to create jobs. He knows how to run business.
So what the hell does that have to do with what I just asked you? You said shake things up. Now you're talking about a man who everybody who's in business creates jobs or they go out of business.
Well, he's running on the platform of changing things and making things better.
Right. So, but you're not answering me. What has he done in his life that makes you believe he's a conservative? Are you a conservative?
Of course I am.
Okay. What makes you believe he's a conservative? What has he done in 69 years that's conservative or said?
Consistently, for one thing, he's voted consistently for Republicans.
The man's single biggest charitable donation was to the
Democrats. What have you done for the Republican cause?
I'm sorry?
What have you done for the Republican cause?
You have to be kidding.
No.
You mean that seriously?
Yes. What have you really done to change things? Did you really stop the omnibus bill?
No, I didn't stop the omnibus bill, but so anybody who hasn't stopped that bill has not done anything for conservatism.
Nobody stood up and said a darn thing about that bill passing. It was passed before we people could even contact our congressmen and senators about it.
That's correct. I don't know what that has to do with the other. But listen, I'm very happy. That's why I took your call. I want people to say what they feel. See, that's but it is instructive. So the man who has built casinos his entire life has a track record for conservatism, but someone like me who's devoted his life to fighting for conservatism didn't stop the omnibus bill. Neither did Donald Trump, one might add. But it's very difficult to argue with emotions, and I understand where the emotions come from. What am I going to do, folks? It's important for you to make up your own minds, and because what's at stake is awesome. It's just awesome. The rift in the Republican Party that his nomination would cause would paralyze the party at this time in history. I don't know what would come of it. There are so many people who wouldn't vote for him. I'm not one of them, by the way. I just want to say I would vote for him because I believe that an awful Republican is almost always better than a Democrat. The Democratic Party is that damaging to the United States, in my view. But I will do my best to see that some other Republican gets the nomination. Jacksonville, Florida, and Greg. Hello, Greg.
Thank you, sir, for taking my call. I'm a huge fan, and I respect your intellect tremendously.
Thank you.
I'm a 22-year retired Navy aviator, and I've narrowed it down in my mind to two candidates, Senator Cruz and Mr. Trump. The first point I wanted to throw out to get your feedback on is how the veterans, which is a hot-button topic in this election, how the veterans in this country have been flat-out stolen from. And I don't think that many representatives of either houses of Congress understand how very close they are to an up-and-close and personal confrontation with these veterans that they've really raked over the coals. These are rough and ready men and women who are courageous, have high integrity, and are men and women of action. and they are getting organized right now to really get in the face of these people who have been stealing from them. I'd like to get your input.
In my opinion, the Democratic Party has been stealing from so many Americans, including the vets. They've just robbed Medicare of a staggering sum of money in order to help pay for Obamacare. They deny blacks the right to choose schools for their children like rich whites have. I mean, the list of the numbers of groups and people that the Democrats have hurt is almost as large as the American people. All right, my friends. Dennis Prager here. Tom in San Antonio, Texas. Hi.
Good afternoon, Dennis. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I just wondered what your thoughts were on Marco Rubio. I am a big Cruz fan, but like a lot of conservatives, I'm concerned about his electability, especially with women. So
I think
with Rubio.
I think Rubio is the most electable conservative.
I do too.
All right. Well, thank you. And that comes obviously with a great deal of high regard for Ted Cruz. What can I say? Whatever answer I give will be distressing to some of you. And I'm not going to take no position. It's not. It's wrong. I'm going to tell you what I think. I have either earned your respect over the years for my opinion or not. That's the way it works. That's the way all of life works. This is why my concept of the moral bank account is so big, and it's one of the reasons that I can't support, one of the many reasons I cannot support Donald Trump. He has no bank account. I don't mean literally. He has a very big bank account, literally. That matters in life. It matters. What you've done for your first 69 years matters before you decided to run for president because you were frustrated with either your life or indeed maybe sincerely frustrated where America is. I will grant that. It doesn't matter to me, but I will grant that. I don't knock his motives, although the way he presents himself, I find it reprehensible because he has started this terrible attacking of each other, and Jeb Bush has continued it. Jeb Bush has been beyond the pale in this regard with attacking of other candidates, and it has done nothing for him, obviously. For Donald Trump, it has been beneficial. All right, so Lewis, what do I think of a Cruz fee, or Lewis in L.A., what do I think of a Cruz fee arena ticket? Any ticket that will win, I like it. What am I going to say? Would it help? Don't know. It also depends if it's Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, or Hillary Clinton. I believe, by the way, that there is a very real chance that Hillary Clinton will be indicted. And the more you read about this is not a normal scandal. This is vile. This is vile what she did with the emails. The United States of America's security is less important to Hillary Clinton than her power and money. I believe that, as I believe the sun rises in the east. I don't believe that of Bernie Sanders. See you tomorrow, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager.